Hey everyone, you're listening to the Alex Files. I'm Alex,
And I'm also Alex.
and this is episode 17.
Whoa.
Whoa, 17 again. It's been a minute, but we're back in our, respective rooms in this summer post Labor Day heat, coming to you live or pre recorded.
Yes. Still in the thick of the pandemic. Wow, wow, wow. Trying to figure out how to navigate this new world, but it's not even the new world yet because we're not all the way through this yet. So,
Mm-hmm.
social distance, masks, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. Yeah, I remember a few months ago thinking, hey, maybe we'll have to re record our little teaser ad for Anchor, and I don't think we're going to have to re record it anytime soon.
Yeah, that still hits home.
It still hits. It hits it, and it hits different.
It hits
Yeah,
different every time. Every surge, every new headline, it continues to hit randomly, chaotically, and differently.
truly. And I think that's the perfect segue for, I think, the sort of catalyst for a variety of feelings we've all been feeling and things we've been experiencing in the last over a year and a half around anxiety and just uncertainty and tension. This is episode 17, and we're going to be chatting about kind of all the ways our bodies know what's up or can really just reflect what we're feeling but may not be acknowledging, and what's happening in the world around us, as well as things we've gone through in our past that might be painful or hard.
Yeah, and like talking about and validating and learning about how emotional experiences and experience of intense stress and trauma really have physical symptoms, sometimes short term, sometimes long term. And um, it can kind of feel weird when that happens to your body and maybe your mind isn't thinking about it. It can be scary, it can be confusing. So kind of here to share about that, break that down. Something we've both personally experienced, way before the pandemic as well as during the pandemic. Um,
Totally. Yeah, what has your sort of experience in life, and then maybe in a little bit we can chat about specific to the pandemic, but what has your experience been like with your own body and how it absorbs or reflects or shows symptoms of things that maybe you're going through or have gone through?
yeah, I think my body was the first thing that told me that something was not right. And it happened at a very young age. In fourth grade, that was the first time I had a panic attack where I lost consciousness and fainted. And as like a young kid, I was after that, a lot of people tell you you're being over dramatic and stuff because you don't necessarily have the words to explain why that happened to your body. It was kind of out of your control. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years later that I was diagnosed with PTSD, which is kind of the clinical diagnosis for all of those physical symptoms that happen as a response to trauma. Happens to people come back from war, experience long-term stress and traumatic events. So at a young age, it happened. I didn't really know why, but um, it took me a while to learn to listen to my body and figure out what those feelings and sensations are telling me. Um, so I'm very grateful to be able to acknowledge that and listen to that now. What about you? Have you felt that physical something before maybe you knew what it was, or how did you know that your body was telling you something like that?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, when I was, 6 or 7 around when my mom died, I don't really, I think just cuz memory is tricky when you're younger, but I don't really remember how my body felt, but I definitely, you know, realized later on in life, like in my early 20s, that something was up when I had, my first panic attack, I think when I was like 21 or 22, and just remember feeling yeah, the feeling like, you're having a heart attack, you're gonna die, like maybe you're feeling like you're gonna faint, and I just knew something was up, and I didn't really know what was going on or where it was stemming from, but I realized that that same feeling kind of echoed later on in life in the past few years, feeling like just everything was so overwhelming that having a panic attack or feeling like I was gonna faint or just feeling like really like sick to my stomach was kind of my body's way of telling me that like something was up, or almost like I need to like escape from whatever this reality is for a moment. And it's like all too much. And sometimes it was, clear, like the sort of reasoning behind it, but a lot of the times it was like felt like it came out of like nowhere.
Yeah, you just said something that um, really makes a lot of sense and resonates. It's just like the way it can sneak up out of nowhere, and sometimes you understand it. Um, that's something that I've struggled with because everyone wants to ask you, what happened and why. Um, Also, you said something about, you know, the, we can't handle it, right? And that we have to escape or something like that. And I think that's exactly what the body is doing by triggering that panic attack.
Hmm.
It's like the physical primal brain alerting our bodies that we're in serious danger or can't handle the situation, while maybe we've kind of had the blinders on. So that's huge.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it also happened maybe, I don't know, like 6 months after Phil died, because I was, trying to do like a little weekend escape with my sister to LA, and was like, I don't know, just looking for some sort of bright spot and something to look forward to. And the first night we were in LA, we were having dinner, and I don't know, I maybe had like half a glass of wine, but suddenly felt like I had like the biggest headache, and it felt like a mix of like a migraine and a panic attack, and I just felt so sick. And I mean, it was clear that it was just me because she felt totally fine and we were like sharing a meal together, but I think it was just also, yeah, have the idea of like having those blinders on and not fully acknowledging this pain and trauma that it was so fresh and new, and being in a situation that you like want to enjoy, but it doesn't really matter if it's like you're out in public or where you are, like those moments can just creep up on you.
Yeah, it's like, um, even after the event, the grieving process or the coping with the abuse that happened and things like that, it's so difficult and consuming to continue to just survive and live and eat and take care of yourself that our body literally has to disassociate either during the trauma or when reminders of that come up and things like it's just a way to detach, but that means we're also detaching from processing it and feeling it, and then boom, all of a sudden out of nowhere, we hit our level of being able to suppress that. Maybe the restaurant was loud and the noises just started to compile, and our body has to finally feel it and say, look, you've been holding in a lot to keep going, but right now we can't do that anymore.
Totally. Yeah. And, you wish, and maybe in retrospect, like, oh, I wish I could have kept it together. But it's like, I think you just have
Yeah.
to surrender to the moment and hope that you're with people who can support you, and and look out for you and just want what's best. But, I mean, it can happen in a crowd. I mean, it can
An
be really,
airplane.
an airplane, like, it can be really tough. But I think it speaks to, like, again, something deeper that you have gone through. And I feel like that's a great, again, another segue to a really great resource that you have some thoughts on.
Yes. So I'm going to show this on the camera, but it's holding up a book. It's a big, beautiful blue book um, with some Matisse art on the cover called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's by a psychologist, doctor named Bessel van der Kolk. And he's actually a really famous psychologist that has done a lot of the groundwork to pave what we now have today as therapy and diagnoses and things like that, as early as working with Vietnam victims and kind of helping the psychological community to rediscover what trauma is. Unfortunately, sometimes trauma research and study falls in the foreground, but then when something like a war happens and people come back with a lot of PTSD, they rediscover it and look into it. So he was a part of a lot of research that happened in the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, as far as looking at the physical outcomes of trauma on the brain specifically. So reading this book is really validating because a lot of the time these things happen with your body. It's a really wild experience to lose control of your body. Your hands lock up, or you pass out, or you start sweating, or you vomit, and there's no real explanation, and maybe you don't have resources to go to therapy, and you have no idea what's going on. And reading this book and understanding that some of the things that you went through cause shifts in your brain that change the chemicals and change your reactions is very validating. So this book really goes into the science behind it, and also a lot of resources of how you can cope with that through breathing and behavioral changes and meditating. And um, it was super validating to read because you just feel crazy sometimes, and something's not right and you can't explain it, or maybe you do know why you're upset or what prompted it, but it's like, how can we lose such physical control of our bodies? That's terrifying. So
And it
uh
sounds like, I mean, I haven't read this book, but I know of it and listened to some of an interview with the author. It sounds like, there is also this idea that, like, if you've gone through something that's really traumatic and intense in your life, whether it's at a young age or not, maybe you've gone to traditional talk therapy, but there are such a range of other types of therapies out there. And, I think from what I remember in the interview with the author was just saying, like, talk therapy is recently, like, semi recently in, like, American culture, like something that's, like, very accepted, but, like, in other cultures they have, like, lots of different types of therapy. And there's just, like, lots of different ways to work through something. And like, you may have done your fill for the time of, like, talking with a therapist, but then things can still manifest in certain moments. So yeah, it's not just, like, one thing that applies to everyone.
yeah. I love that you brought that up because a big part of that book does really go into different types of therapy and give examples of how different people work through trauma. And, you know, in my experience with therapy, it took me a really long time, like 15 years of trying different things like EMDR, talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. All of these things do help, but what really turned the leaf for me was dialectic behavioral therapy. And there's just um, so many different ways to continue to try to heal and cope, because it really sucks when you feel like that physical reaction has a grip over you and affects the way you live your life, gets in the way of doing what you could do and what you want to do. I feel that a lot.
Totally. Well, and I think, while we have all these tools and resources at our hands, and we've both gone through different really intense things, but if we have like the tools to kind of work through them and all of that, in March of 2020, the pandemic for us here in California really started with shelter in place. And I think that just like threw a wrench into everything and brought up a lot of things um, that we thought we'd kind of learn to deal with, or we're kind of like, okay, we got this. And it's like, just kidding, we don't got this. Especially, dealing with our own, maybe anxieties or depression or mental health. Um, Being in a lockdown pandemic situation just heightens all of that. And so um, it's like, it's tricky to strike the right balance.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes, you're holding it all together and then you stub your toe and you just start bawling. And it's just that catalyst to knock you off the edge or shovel everything back up to the shore. Um, and none of us had any idea how devastating and long and grueling this, you know, lifetime event that's still happening every day would affect us and would bring those things up. And I know I've personally really struggled with my mental health and struggling to accept that it has to do with what's going on, but it really does. What is going on is insane, and that affects us. And staying at home, being isolated, losing your job, not everything is changing. Going to the grocery store is now an event, and it's terrifying. So we got to
Yeah,
kind
it's
of let
still an
us
event.
feel it.
And I think, like, what is now, we're in September of 2021, which
What?
is really wild. And, a lot of the things like are different, ways we do things like masking up to go to the store, or at least here in California. And, things like that are showing our vaccine card, whatever, like it's becoming normalized. And I think it's really easy to just become numb to that. But I think, yeah, if you're in a crowd or on a plane or in, it's so easy to just forget the reality of like what's going on, which can be nice to like have that escape for a moment. But I think it can also prompt a lot of anxiety about, the repercussions, like who am I around? Like, I have certainly felt that way with just the idea that like if I get COVID, I'm ruining everyone's life. Like just that paranoia and anxiety. And I think it's ultimately just this like, there we have no control over this. Like we have control over our actions and the risks we take, but that's still not perfect. So it's just it's tricky to navigate.
And I think having no control can be either very terrifying or very freeing. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, with OCD and things like that, I'm on it's very terrifying aspect of it. But I try to look at it in the opposite and kind of lean into the fact that, this is not, oh, absolve me of all my responsibility and accountability, but there are so many things that I need to just radically accept and open myself up to the fact that this is going to continue to be chaos. Things are going to continue to not work out as I wanted to. And I have to just roll with the punches and not get stuck every time things are changing and harder or different, and find the freedom in the fact that this is just an absolute free for all. And the fact that I'm holding on, maintaining physical health and mental health, and working, that's amazing on its own. So I have to
Totally.
keep kind of reminding myself that perspective, because it's like I like to know the plan, and there's no real plan for when
Same.
this is gonna.
Love to know the plan, love to know the schedule. This has been the biggest troll in all of that. But I think, yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, like not taking for granted the things that maybe we used to before, like having a job, having a place to live, like just things that maybe seem like, I don't know, non things that you would think about. But so many people have, yeah, lost like their job or have had to move or whatever the case is. So I think also just looking for those small joys, like whatever it is, a call with a friend, a walk around the block. I don't know. I think,
Pizza,
oh
a
my God,
good rom-com.
always pizza. Yeah, like you said, like things can unravel. Like all these plans we make can definitely unravel. And so, and we can do as much scenario planning as we want, but like ultimately, like we just gotta roll with the punches. I think that's a great way to put it.
I mean,
Because there are a lot of punches.
it's so much easier said than done. Like, this is coming from the girl who can't handle sometimes, like, when I go to a place to get one thing and then they tell me they don't have that thing, and I'm like, well, fuck everything. Like, throw the computer away. I can't do this anymore. So it's whether I want to practice it or not, it's something
Yeah.
that I have to practice every day because, this is closed or they don't have that or you can't go to this or this was canceled. And then it's just got to breathe in, radically accept, and lean into the gratitude and, well, what do I have going, and what are the things I'm grateful for today, and like
Yeah. I mean, I also, like, I try to practice that, but like
it's
a
hard.
lot of the times it's like yelling, fuck, into the universe.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Or like screaming to no one in the car. And I think we just do the best we can, but sometimes days are too long, so you got to do it like again 1 hour at a time because so much changes and there's so many heightened emotions and just you can feel how tense it is right now.
So, you know like, stability and routine helps me with anxiety and things like that. So, you know maybe I've been feeling a little stuck in this box and where I work and live and have been, and kind of confined, but it's also like, what are the things in this environment that I can do that make me feel good, that I can look forward to? So I have things that I do on a daily basis or within a routine, like yoga, watching shows, cooking, reading, drawing, and having the time to do each of those things in different order, whatever, focusing and being mindful doing that and being like, wow, this is a great moment. I'm doing this thing that makes me feel good and I enjoy. And, that might seem really basic, but I think this pandemic, as you mentioned, has made us not take things for granted and to turn inward if we can and resolve and enjoy the small things. I feel like I want way less in life, like just, a couple of good friends, some pets, and the
Right?
moon, maybe some
Yeah.
pizza, but I'm good, man. Like, I'm
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it so many times before, but it just puts all of it into perspective and like yeah, like knowing that you have a bed to sleep in and you have your friends and family and like you aren't like in a parking lot waiting to get in a hospital bed, which is what like so many people are dealing with, or just all these like really yeah, real things that are happening, but yeah, to just really be grateful and like cherish the things that we do have um and just I think looking out for each other even though it's a time of being so maybe isolated or living alone or whatever the case is, like still maintaining a couple like connections or whatever those look like for you.
Yeah. So I just thought of a question I want to ask you because, we're talking about how, we did feel physical things before the
Mhm.
pandemic, but then the pandemic came, and it's like, I'm interested if there's anything that has happened during the pandemic that you noticed that maybe wasn't happening before, or, something your body was doing. Like, have you had a lot of migraines, or have you seen a physical change within your mental health within the last year and a half that we've been doing this?
I would say that I feel just probably more anxious but in spikes, like um sort of depending on what's happening in the world. So like yeah, when we first went into lockdown, and then last winter when it was like another surge, and then in the past month or so with like, I don't know, all the Delta variant things. I think that like it sort of comes in spikes in a way that like I assume all the time that I have COVID, in the way that like a lot of, not, maybe not the best comparison, but like for some women it's like, oh my god, I'm definitely pregnant. Like that feeling,
Yeah.
where you're like, that's gonna be okay. Have to figure out, like, assuming the very worst possible thing, which is something I think I've always done in life, like just assume the worst, because if you assume and prepare mentally for like the very, very worst case scenario, which in this case would be like I'm a super spreader and will be shunned from society, then like maybe when the news comes, I am bracing myself better for it. Um, Knock on wood, that has not happened yet. But I think it's just this like mentally preparing for all these different scenarios, um, which I don't think is healthy, but also like it's just, and with a lot of things, like it happened with, losing Phil, like it's happened with so many things in life, just like preparing for the ultimate worst case scenario in my head, which causes these sort of jolts of anxiety. And so I think it's just trying to be aware of that, and um, be nicer to myself during those times, and remember to like pace myself and know that this isn't forever, this feeling and this really, really extreme uncertainty. But yeah, it's definitely been a thing in these different, like, I guess, seasons of the pandemic, because there's been moments where it's like, oh my god, things are looking up, like this is looking great. um
Vaccines, yay.
yeah, and then I'm
Not
like,
really.
oh, not everyone believes in science. I'm like, there's, it just, it's a roller coaster. But I think knowing, like, correlating, like, I'm feeling this way, and this is also all happening in my life and in the world, um, it usually kind of goes that way, and then it'll usually mellow out. But I would say right now we're at the top of the roller coaster.
Ah, shit.
Well, not
Well,
the very top.
well, the thing is, in DBT, they tell you, yes, there's this roller coaster and you're on it and you're riding it. But what you need to do is you need to get off the roller coaster and watch yourself ride it,
Hmm.
and not be gripped in with it, but watching it and acknowledging it.
I
Again,
like that.
easier said than done. But I always am like,
So look at
get off
you.
the ride.
Yeah. Even if you have to
What?
jump,
Yeah, dude.
maybe when it slows down,
Yeah.
or maybe you like get like a little rope and like bungee down or something, depending on how far off the ground you are.
Parachute. Psh.
Yes. Have you found with, you know, the past year and a half or so, like that the way that your body responds has shifted at all to, certain things that might be quote unquote like triggering, or yeah, what has that kind of been like for you?
Um, I feel like, so I'm in a management position at work and I have a lot of people depending on me and I try to support a lot of people. And as the, pandemic broke out, it was, and supporting a client, it was the most stressful, and I think will be the most stressful experience of my career lifetime. And during that, it was kind of a marathon for like at least 9 months of just maybe disassociating and keeping going. And I was actually reflecting and surprised, like, wow, I haven't had any major episodes or like huge breakdowns, and this is crazy. This is awesome. I'm doing so great. And then in 2021, shit hit the fan, and I started feeling all those things that I had been carrying and trying to keep going with. And for the first time ever, I got eczema from stress,
Mm-hmm.
this rash that just appeared on my body. That was a huge signal of like, you need to slow down and pace yourself. I've also had more anxiety and panic attacks than I used to have when I was kind of in a more, you know, less emotionally vulnerable place because
Mhm.
the pandemic makes us very emotionally vulnerable to having these intense reactions like anxiety and panic attacks and bursts of rage and depression and anxiety. So I feel like I've felt that more this year, and in a way that makes me feel like, man, like, am I digressing in all my progress? And the truth is, yeah, maybe, but that's the roller coaster. And I'm never just going to be a straight up and then you're good on the top of the ride. And
Mhm.
that the reason I have these coping skills and awareness of what's happening with my body is to then kick it back into gear of taking care of myself and getting over that next hump of the roller coaster. But that does take effort and awareness. And, it was really scary. I had never gotten a rash before, and it started just showing up all over my body, and it was itchy. And I went to the doctor, and it was like, holy shit, stress inducing eczema. Okay. Well, and then the other
Yeah.
kind of chip fell with, depression and panic attacks and feeling like, yeah, I understand the trigger, the prompting event of what's happening, but it's happening more intense. And I used to feel like I have more control over this, but the fact that we're under so much daily stress and pressure with this pandemic and everything that it's brought, you know, opens us up to struggling more with those reactions. So
Totally. And I think the fact that you are aware of it and what
it's the first step, baby.
yeah, I mean that's huge. And the roller coaster, aka life, is never going to be flat. I mean that's why it's a roller coaster, unfortunately.
The world is not flat, we know
No,
this.
unless you're Millie Bobby Brown and flat earther. Um,
Yikes. That's a
but
yikes for me.
that's a yikes. But I think there is this pressure to you know, go to commitments for friends, be with family, but also be safe and be seemingly perfect, which may not. And then of course people would say, "Oh, we don't want." No, we're not asking that of you. But it
Perfect a
is. It's like
hobby,
this
write a
this
novel.
right, to be this person who doesn't exist, who can go to all these events and be at every single thing, but also be 100% safe and not be a risk. And it's like,
That doesn't
that's just
exist.
not happening. I am not a robot,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and fortunately, but I think fortunately. But yeah, it's so much pressure that I don't think we're fully acknowledging. And I think a lot of the time it's that disassociating, just trying to get through the day. Um,
Yeah, and to do these motions and try to keep up because you see other people doing it and you're comparing yourself and they're like, well, they can do it, I should do it. And I don't want to disappoint them, but it's like we all need to admit and take a beat that this shit is insane and we need to pace ourselves. I don't know about you, Alex, but I am really tired all the time. A
Yes,
lot.
and then when I'm
More
tired
tired.
all the time, I think I have COVID, and then I'm like, well, fuck.
I feel bad. I'm like, wow, I'm too tired to do things that I should do. So I try not to say the word should. And I'm like, the things I would like to do, but I still feel bad. But damn, I'm tired. So finding that balance of resting and pacing yourself at a new pace that's not the one that might be on someone's Instagram feed or not be the pace that you wanted to be by this point in your career or whatnot. But to maintain health and physical well-being, we gotta slow down.
Totally. I think maintaining is the totally right word. And I think, you and I, we can get into this in another episode, but we both run social accounts for different brands. And
Oh Lord.
yeah, there's such a pressure. There's this idea that when something is happening in the world, which right now there's endless terrible things and great things, but it's this idea of doom scrolling, going on Twitter.
Ah,
And it's like, dude, that's a part of our jobs. That's been happening since before the pandemic. We have to know what's happening in the world because that informs what we're putting out and how we're generating our content and
responding.
our
Yeah.
strategy and all of that. So, we can't opt out of that. We have to, distance ourselves or dissociate in a way, but it's that's also playing into this, all these things, and the fact that we, yeah, are two people who, most people in the world, have gone through something, but we're also getting inundated because it's our job. We're absorbing a lot of things that we see on social that are really messed up. And a lot of the
Yeah.
time they don't have to do with any, like, don't have to do with any specific global event. They're just specific to like the types of fields that we work in.
Yeah. Yeah. The internet is like snowballing into one of the most toxic dumpster fires ever. And there's no way to control it. And, there are some good things about it, but it's also becoming a vehicle of doom scrolling, of ignorance, of hate speech, of a little bit too much
Yeah.
bullshit. Uh,
Yeah. And we see a
the
lot of
worst
the mess.
sides of it. The
Yeah,
worst
so
sides of it.
and I love that, everyone else can see, like, they can obviously by their algorithms curate the things they want to see, but like um we get to see it all. So it's
Unsea juice, man. Buy me a
right.
carton.
I
The
know.
things that I could see and have seen, and I've worked 8 years now, and it's like I'm still shocked. I'm still seeing new crazy shit that I'm just like, wow. All right, Twitter. I Instagram DMs. You are crazy.
Right?
Okay,
You got me.
dude.
So if you could tell the version of you from like early March, begin mid March 2020, like any advice, any words you would say to the younger you from a year and a half ago about sort of how to ways to buckle up your little roller coaster seatbelt for this one?
Um, Basically what I was just talking about is the pace that, you need to take some pressure off yourself, Alex, and to pace yourself with work and putting yourself out there for other people and your expectations on yourself with productivity and things like that, and just to be kind and allow yourself more downtime and forgiveness for the struggles that are to come, because you're doing great, sweetie, but
Chris Jenner, thank you.
we have to keep pushing, and that it's okay to not be okay, and to step and take a break.
Yeah,
What about you, younger, year and a half
I would
Alexandra?
say hi. Hi, Alex. This is fucked up, but and I know you spent a year.
But
But yeah. I know you spent a year like working on yourself and grieving, and there's like something that's going to happen that's going to be real messed up. So just brace yourself and pace yourself because girl, we're going to get in it. But if anyone's prepared, it's you, even if you feel like you're going crazy sometimes because everything feels like it's unraveling. Not outfit of the day, but one day at a time, minute, second, however you want to chunk up your time.
chunk it up.
Chunk it up.
Chunk
Um,
chunk.
and just like also remember that even if the world is feeling small or weird or scary, getting outside for a walk around the block is the best thing. And yeah, and just also like be grateful that you live in California.
If you live in California. If you don't, be grateful. Oh wait, that's to yourself. If that makes sense. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, unless
I
my
was like,
previous self moved to a different state.
oh wow. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
and be
wow.
grateful you live in California. California is incredibly beautiful. We pay a lot of money here for the sunshine tax, as I call it. It's beautiful. It's surreal to look out the window and see palm trees and sunshine and flowers in December. I don't know if it's like that up north per se, but it's also beautiful in a different way up there.
Totally.
Largest trees I've ever seen in my life.
Lots of trees. Like any state, there's, got your own natural disasters, but we are always looking out for each other. And remember that 1 week from today is well, I don't know when this will go live, but we have a recall election in 1 week.
Oh yeah, I voted no.
Good.
Like,
Same.
get the fuck out of here, Republicans. I was so happy when I dropped that back. So I was like, big fuck you to every single person who thinks that this is appropriate.
Yeah. Whew. Just one more thing on our checklist.
Sorry if that was like way too political. It's just at this point,
No.
silence is compliance. And I have to tell you right now, that's not where I'm at.
And also, silence is violence. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is not a library.
Shh. But don't.
But sheesh.
Sheesh.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. So we're going to be legal next episode, right?
Barely
18.
legal. Yeah.
Get some smokes.
Get
Vote.
vote.
Get drafted.
Mm,
But you
we,
can't have a draft.
oh,
Not
maybe
till we're
in
21.
yeah, maybe if you like go to Europe or something.
Or you
I'm
have
not really
cool
sure.
cool parents who let you drink wine when you're
Oh
at the
yeah,
house.
like very European. But yeah, I can't
Mhm.
believe we're almost like a decade in metaphorically to our pod. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, yeah, another decade, 2 decades.
two decades. It's like life happens so fast.
Life comes at you fast.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. We're gonna keep growing and really looking forward to what's next in the files. We don't really know. We're just gonna do a little shuffle, pickle it random, pickle it,
Piglet, Mambo number files.
mambo number files. Stay tuned for that.
Oh my God. Well, thank you all for
Oh
tuning
my
in
god.
to episode 17. Queen.
17. Wow, it's so crazy.
I know we went real deep dive on that roller coaster metaphor analogy, but like it really represents the state of the world. And I think we all have our own, personal things we're going through, but just remember, pace yourself. And like, if you want to say no to something, that's chill. Like, do it. You
Actually, I
can,
want you to go
yeah,
actively say no to one thing tomorrow if you listen to this.
exactly.
Please.
And, you can say no gracefully. You don't have to be an asshole, which is one of our rules is like don't be an asshole, but also, yeah, you got to take care of yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. You need to come number one. Can't pour from your cup if there's nothing in it.
right? No. Only ice.
Ice, ice,
Uh,
baby.
we can't
Wow.
wait for episode 18 and we will see you in the cabinets.
Bye.
Bye.